Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing tonight? It's good to be here. It's good to see you guys, and thank you for having me again. It's interesting. The message that Adriana just read was very interesting because it has a lot to do with what we're going to be talking tonight. If you were here the last time that I spoke, we're going to continue on the same subject. So I'm going to expand a little bit more. And if you weren't here, don't worry. I'm going to make the references that is needed for you to understand. And if you haven't seen the lecture yet, we have it available on our YouTube page. So if you would like to, you can access the page. Not only that lecture, but all the other lectures we've had here before are available for you on those pages. Make sure that you visit our Instagram, Facebook, subscribe, share with your friends. There are a lot of messages in there that can bring a lot of comfort in times of need, and we never know who they might reach. I would like to start by saying that the words I'm sharing tonight, they're not mine. The teachings, they're not mine. The beauty behind them doesn't emanate from me. Everything comes from Spirit. Everything comes from God. I'm just being used to help transmit the message to you guys. I'm far from being perfect. So the reason why I am here is because I am imperfect. So by having me here, you also give me the opportunity to work on my own evolution. So thank you once again. So last time we spoke about personal evolution, right? World transition, how the world evolved. We also spoke about group disincarnations, right? So collective disincarnations, why they happen, what it all means, and why it's happened so frequently nowadays. The lecture tonight will be split in two parts. The first part, I want to talk to you about divine providence, so comfort that we can find in trying times. And then we'll expand to the second topic of the night. So last time we were here, we spoke about spiritual and world evolution, right? So at the same time that we are evolving, the world is evolving as well, comes a time that they both evolve together. And that's exactly where we are now. And in times like this, when this happened, then we also have what is called mass departures, where large portions of the population, they all disincarnate at the same time. And that serves a greater purpose. If you were here, you remember that we talked a little bit about that, right? And I've been talking to some friends, and the reason why we're going to go back to this is a lot of people have voiced to me that they are still having a lot of difficulties adjusting to what is happening right now. So what we're going through, we have never seen in the scale that we have seen currently. So for months now, hundreds of people are disincarnating on a daily basis just from the pandemic. This week, we also had the accident that happened in Beirut, where hundreds of others disincarnated, thousands who were hurt. And that brings a lot of pain, and it raises a lot of questions. So not only they were hurt and suffering, but the world is crying and suffering with them too. And in times like this, it is important to understand that we don't go through this alone. There is a divine providence that assists all of us, that is available to us. And even though these events, they bring a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, there are noble feelings that are inspired by them. Feelings so people become more charitable, compassionate, they help one another. And those actions, they add to this comfort, to this divine providence that we receive. So it not only comes from spirit, but also comes from one another. But you might ask yourself, sometimes I just feel like I am at the bottom of a well. I'm deep inside an abyss and there is absolutely no way out. I feel hopeless. Well, I want to tell you that it is also in moments like this that we have to raise our thoughts and look up, right? Because in our darkest hours, in moments of need, trying and hard times, if we elevate our thoughts, if we lift our eyes, there will always be a light that is shining bright, calling upon us, ready to be of service. So Leon Denis, in the book Here and Hereafter, he talks a little bit about divine providence. And he wrote, "Providence is the superior spirit. It is the angel that watches over the unhappy. It is the unseen comforter whose inspiration warms the heart upon which despair had laid an icy finger. It is the bright beacon whose rays guide the mariner adrift upon turbulent seas. Above all, providence is a divine love, the sublime overflow of which neglects none of us, none of its offspring." So it doesn't matter who we are, what we are doing. We all receive this gift. And messages of divine providence can be found everywhere. You find them in books. They are inspired by spirits. They are psychographed. You can read them in the Bible. So everywhere you look, you have these messages available to us. Sometimes we choose not to see them, but they're always there. One of my favorite ones is found in the Bible. It is the Shepherd's Prayer, Psalm 23. And I want to bring a few highlights from that prayer so we can look at them and see what it really means. So, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Who is a shepherd? What is a shepherd? A shepherd is somebody who takes care, who guides, who watches over you, right? A shepherd is ready to give his life for his flock. And this is the level of help and love that we receive from Spirit. I shall not want. Now, what does this mean? Nothing will ever falter me? Yeah, you can look at it that way, but we have to go a little deeper than that. That means that whatever experience you need in order to aid you on your growth, to aid us on our evolution, they will be made available to us. Sometimes we don't understand the form in which they come because it could be a trial, right? So not only these experiences of joy, but also of trials and pains, they are given to us and they are available to us according to our evolution, according to where we are, and they all serve a purpose. And we'll never be thirsty for them because they will always be provided. He restores my soul, leads me to the right ways. How is our soul restored? As we evolve, right? So as we learn, as we acquire knowledge, as we have experiences, all of that is added to us. And that gives us energy to continue, that gives us the desire to move on, right? So the higher a spirit is, the faster it vibrates. The more it vibrates, the brighter it is. And this is how our soul is restored, is always shining brighter and brighter. Leads me to the right ways. So sometimes we feel lost, we don't know where to go, but there is a voice inside of us. If we tune in and if we decide to listen to it, we will always know what to do, or at least we're going to have at least a very good idea of what we should be doing. So even if I walk through the valleys of shadows and death, I will not fear, for he is with me and he comforts me. So this actually has a lot to do with the message that Adriana read in the beginning of the meeting tonight, right? It was talking exactly about death. But what is this valley of shadows and death? It's the hard times that we go through. It's the times where we are confused, where we feel lost and we feel alone, right? And could be death in the actual sense of death. But does death really exist in the way that many of us understand it? It doesn't really, right? Death is just another passage. It's you closing this door but walking out the next one. And that's why we should not fear. In times like that, there will always be someone or something to comfort us. All we have to do is be open to it. So goodness and mercy will follow me every day of my life, and I will live in his house forever. So this has to do with the laws of God, right? It has to do with eternal love, has to do with justice, has to do with forgiveness. So no matter what we do or what road we are on, there is always mercy and love available to us. And because there is no death in the way that we understand, we will live in his house forever. And which house is this? It's a very small place. Any guesses? The universe, exactly. Check this out. We have an eternity to get to know a never-ending place. Sounds pretty good to me, right? So nowhere in here it's telling us that we have to go alone through anything, that there will never be any help available to us. It's on the contrary. Everywhere we look, there are messages letting us know that there is always divine providence available to us. I'm going to share a message that was dictated by the Spirit Emmanuel. And you can find the full text in the book Thought and Life. I'm going to read to you, but I don't want you to only listen to the words. I would like for you to also think about what they mean and try to bring that inside of you. So, pure love is the Creator's reflection in all creatures. Love shines forth in everything, and everything throbs with the same vibration of wisdom and beauty. Love is the very foundation of life, and justice is the basis of all law. Love sublimely manifests itself in the harmony of the worlds, exalting the glory of the infinite, just as it does in the forgotten flowers of the field. It is the divine plasma enveloping all creation, the very breath of God permeating the universe. Love is the silent hope of heaven, awaiting the evolution of all principles while respecting the decision of all consciences. The life fluid that nourishes the rose is the same that sustains the prickly thorns. Love is the reflection of God. He allows us eternity itself to return to goodness, and that is his unchanging rule. Because we are his heirs, rays of his infinite intelligence, and because he himself is the eternal love of all creation, in all and every part, he has established that each spirit should reflect on what it loves the most, thus transforming itself into light or darkness, joy or pain. So, Emmanuel in Thought and Life. Soak that in just for a little bit. So when we stop and think about the meaning of these words, we begin to comprehend the size of the divine providence that is available to us. the grandiosity of God and the spiritual side, we begin to understand that there is no escaping God, right? He is everywhere. He is the plasma in the universe. His thought permeates everything, everything that exists, that there was or there will ever be, reflects the thoughts of God. So we don't have to fear. But a lot of people still try to deny the existence of God. They try to blind themselves to the spiritual providence, right? And it's interesting because not wanting to see God and not wanting to see this love that is available to us, in a way, it is like being in the middle of the ocean, closing your eyes, and pretending you're not in water. But what happens when you open your eyes? All you see is water, right? The same way that when we decide to open our hearts, elevate our thoughts, expand our consciousness, we see and feel God everywhere. There is no denying him, there is no escaping from him. He is always present and will always be. So in times like the times that we're going through today, we have to understand that we don't have to do it alone. That even though it hurts and sometimes it's difficult, that is always comfort for us. Now I want to move on to the second part of our lecture tonight. So this love that God has for us, right? The mercy that he makes available. How is that translated? Through the messages we've seen already. One common theme is reincarnation, right? What is reincarnation? If not mercy and justice, right? Remember, we just talked about this. We are allowed to take our time to make our mistakes and work on ourselves as fast or as slowly as we want. We can choose joy or pain, right? Light or darkness. Those are all choices that we make through our free will. And he is there, patiently waiting for us. And there is no rush. We can take as long as we want. And this is where reincarnation comes into place, because it gives us the opportunity to do exact that, right? We go from one life to the other, learning the lessons that we haven't mastered, adding on to them, making mistakes, coming back, doing all over again, making mistakes again, and we get to do it over and over and over until we get it right. So like we mentioned before, death is nothing but an illusion. So everyone who has been living through the pandemic, who left in the explosion in Beirut, that has been living through whatever means it is that makes this body end, they haven't stopped to exist. Everyone that we loved, that has been part of our life, they all continue to go on. Death is just an illusion, right? Nothing has changed. Our life is eternal. So from the moment we are created, through all eternity, all there is life. Now, we all talk about reincarnation, how some people believe in it, how some people don't believe in it, but how we get to come back over and over again. But a lot of people don't talk about what it really means to reincarnate. What is involved between the time that we leave our life here and get to come back again? What do you do during that time? Any ideas? Well, there's a lot, right? And it all depends on a lot of factors. But it raises some questions. So, what happens after our souls leave our bodies and return to the spiritual realm? How long do we stay there? So, how long does it take from one life to the next? What do we do? And how do we get to return? So, what is the process of coming back to a different body, right? Well, there is really no simple answer. It will be different for everybody because we are all evolving at our own paces and our experiences are personal to each one of us. What happens after our body dies will also be different based on our story, right? So it will depend on a lot of factors, how spiritual we are, if we are a imperfect spirit, a more perfect spirit, what kind of moralities and values we possess. So a lot of things will go into that. So, or evolution, or attachment to things, morality, spirituality, life events, and even the cause of our death, the death of our body, will impact what happens to us afterwards, how we move on, right? And a lot of these, they go together. So our evolution will tell us if we are more evolved or less evolved. Usually if we are more evolved, we are less material. But if we are less evolved, then we tend to be more material and more attached to worldly possessions, right? So we put a lot of importance to money and cars and beauty and the way we look and things that circulate around those. Now, if we are more evolved, then our values are different and we are not so attached to things that have to do with vanity and wealth. And that ties with our morality and that ties with our life events. In what sense? Meaning that if you are somebody who is more spiritual, you are going to spend more time on charity, on helping others, on acquiring knowledge, on learning for yourself, and sharing with others. So your links to the material world won't be as strong. Now, if you are more material, then that is different. Once the body dies, we will have more difficulties, not only understanding that we are dead, accepting the death of the body, or even accepting the existence of God. So all of those will have a lot of implications for us. So if we are a material person whose body has now died, and we find ourselves in the spiritual world, in the beginning, it might be very confusing for us. We might have the feeling that we are dreaming, that we're in the middle of a nightmare. We don't quite understand what's happening. And slowly we start to come to the understanding that our body no longer exists. But at that point, we tend to go back. So we stick around and we go back to the things that we used to do. So whatever passions we used to have, that's what we're going to seek. Whatever places we used to go, that's where we're going to go. If we had a lot of money, we're going to be attached to that. Sometimes we're even attached to our bodies because we don't want to let it go, right? Now, on the other hand, if that was not your case, then you come to understand a lot faster that you no longer exist in the material world, that you are now in spirit, and then you're ready to continue to move on. Now, what about the cause of death? How is that going to impact how you start your afterlife? Several ways, right? So, example, if your body dies of old age, so that was already expected in a certain way. So your acceptance and your understanding of it might be a little better. Now, let's say you were fighting a disease, or it happened as an accident. Because most of us, where we are in our evolution, we tend to be very material and so attached to our body. We go on to the afterlife with reflections of our diseases, or with the reflections of our accident. And what happens next is very important. So throughout Earth and between here and the afterlife, there are a number of places, colonies, places like this house as an example. So what we see here is just a building, right? We see walls, we see chairs, tables. Now, what we don't see here plays a big part in the afterlife. So this house here, for us, is a center where we come and we listen to a lecture and we receive a pass. And every now and then we come for other services. But for the spiritual world, it can serve as a hospital. It can serve as a place where a spirit can come and continue to evolve. So right now, as an example, all we see are ourselves. But if we were able to see beyond that, we would see countless of other souls that are here with us, learning and continue to evolve just from a different realm. So if you have impressions of a disease or an accident, most likely we're going to be taken to a spiritual hospital where they're going to aid you and help you. Now, at a certain point, once that transition has happened, we all move on to his next, right? But what about ourselves as physical bodies? Do we have any effect on those who have crossed over? What do you think? Can we influence anything over them? A lot, right? We can aid them, help them move on, or you can even hold them back. So imagine you are somebody who is very attached to your family, and your body has now died, and you're moving on. Sometimes our attachment is so strong that spirits, souls will stay behind because they are worried about their families. They're worried about how their wives are going to move on, or their husbands, what's going to happen to their kids, what's going to happen to their finances. Exactly. So our energy will impact them. That's exactly what it is.
I was in New York. I know I fell down from 18 floor.
You fell down from 18th floor?
18th floor. I'm alive. I broke my bones and everything. Oh, when I hit so hard, I don't feel nothing. I was dead. Oh, when I saw my beautiful God, he bring me back to the earth. And from that day, I changed a lot. Like you said, the spirit will come and help you and everything. Yeah, it's true. Because I remember a lot of things. They put the hand, God put the hand. But you might say, boy, I'm alive. I'm a little bit paralyzed. Oh, I was in coma. They put me, I was for 6 months. I lost 1.5 my memory. Because I used to be a pilot, I used to be a cop, I used to be a SWAT, I used to be the bodyguard of the governor. Oh, I couldn't know more about my actions. And forgive me.
Oh, absolutely not. Thank you so much for sharing. And we hear stories like his all the time, right? So there's a reason why he is here. There's a reason why you are here, right? And your accident, even though it was tragic and it took a lot from you, it also what? It also gave you a lot, right? You just said that it brought you God. What great.
I could walk a little bit, and I got my bones broken, and that, or at least I could say it to people.
Well, and your story is important, right? Why? Because it confirms everything that we believe in, right? It shows us that everything is true. And a lot of people will have near-death experiences when way of calling the experience that you went through where your spirit detaches from your body in a certain way. You are exposed to the spiritual life, right?
I can show you. And I got my arm broken. It was a lot of feet, 18 feet.
18 floors.
I got my arm broken. Oh, I'm alive.
And we are very happy you're here.
Oh,
And
Maria, bring me with you.
thank
My wife.
you so much, Maria. So, like Maria said, our energy will impact those who have crossed over, right? Either aid them or hold them back. Now, so what can we do to help them move on, not to hold them back? Is it okay to be sad and to cry? Of course. But what else do we do? So rather than always crying and asking why, we do what? We elevate our thoughts in a different way. We bring good memories, right? We cherish the happy moments that we have. We move on with our lives. We try and we try to show them that everything will be okay. And that helps them to move on. That brings them peace. But what is another thing that we can do, not only for those we love, but for any soul that is crossing over, anybody who is disincarnating? What is one of the greatest powers we can use? Pray, prayer, right? And praying is not kneeling down and reciting things for hours and hours. It could be just one thought that you elevate. You can do it everywhere. You can do it anywhere. It doesn't have to be long. It has to be heartfelt. It has to be sincere. And it can travel through the entire universe. So Leon Denis talks about prayer. And he says, prayer is like a window opening upon the unseen into the infinite, through which the soul perceives 1,000 sublime and consoling impressions. With these, it becomes impregnated, intoxicated, and from them, as from a fluidic bath, it emerges invigorated and regenerated. How beautiful is that? How powerful is it? Right? And we can do it for everyone. Now, what happens when a spirit actually understands and accepts its new reality? So now we're gone through the shock of the body dying, and we understand where we are, and we accept God, and we accept that there is help and life moves on. So what is the next step? What do we do next? They study their past and they seek out the means of raising themselves to a higher degree. So we find that in the Spirit's book, question 227. So what it means, they study their past. So once we leave our body and we are ready to continue, life happens kind of in the same way that it happens here when it comes to what we do, that we continue to learn, we continue to develop and to evolve. But the first thing that we do is look at the life that we just had. So we are paired with the group of spirits or mentors that will help us look at every moment of our past life, the one that just ended. Analyze every situation. Look at the mistakes we made. Look at what we could have done and we didn't do, things that we could have done better, things that we had planned on doing that we never got to do. So we get to review all of it. All of it. And that later will help us plan our next incarnation. But it will also help us decide on what comes next, right? There are many years between one incarnation and the next. So through all of those years, we are continuing to learn and we are continuing to evolve. And what we did in our past life, and many times what we did in other lives, will dictate what we're going to learn, what we're going to work on. So we're talking a little bit here about what goes on in the afterlife. So the revelations of the spirits concerning the life beyond the grave teach us that in it there is no room for sterile contemplation or idle beatitude. So we're not going to be standing somewhere looking at the sky, praying all day long. There is no idleness. We're going to continue to work and to evolve. So every region of the universe is peopled with busy spirits. Everywhere, throngs and myriads of souls are ascending, descending, ever actively engaged, whether in the spaces of light or in the darkest regions. So what this means is that we are everywhere. And there are groups that will be teaching. There are groups that will be going to places where spirits just left their body or have been there for a long time and need help in understanding what's going to happen next. And sometimes those are called the darkest regions, right? Here is a vast audience gathered together to receive the teachings of some superior spirits. So we are continuing to learn. Beyond, groups are forming to welcome some newcomers. So those who are just now leaving, somebody is receiving them and explaining to them what happens next. Further on, there are spirits engaged in combining fluids in 1,000 shapes and 1,000 colors according to the subtle ends to which they are destined. Chemistry sounds like, right? Could be also creation. So once we leave our body, we continue to work in every single area we can imagine and cannot imagine. So science, architecture, humanities, whatever it is, nature. So you work with fauna or flora, hospitals. So you continue to learn. You will explore the areas that you need to work on for your next incarnation. So there is no standing around. We are working the entire time. Now, progress to realize. So this is telling what we're going to be doing, right? So we have progress to realize, we have science to acquire, we have sorrows to extinguish. So mistakes that we made, people that we hurt, right? We're going to be working on those. Remorses to calm, errand of human love, expiations, devotions, or sacrifice. So all of these motives stimulate, urge, and impel them on the path of duty. So in the shortless and limitless immensity, motion and life incessantly reign. So we continue to learn. Unfortunately, we're running out of time tonight, so we're going to stop over here. But I want to stop and let you, with the message, I want to reinforce the fact that even though we are going through difficult times, even though things are hard, and many of us are suffering and many of us are in pain, we cannot forget, and we should always remember that divine providence is always available to us. All we have to do is raise our thoughts and connect to the spiritual side. It's been a pleasure being here with you guys. Next time we can continue from here. Thank you very much.